I know I've been gone for a little minute, man. I had to go take care of some business. Had a podcast to knock out this weekend. So y'all go check that out, man. I did a mic video y'all can check out on my Instagram. I posted some of it in my story. And then I did a podcast last week with On Air Podcast, We Fam ATL. Check them out. It's a podcast based out here in Atlanta, We Fam ATL. Or you can just follow my Instagram _RichLawd 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 _RichLawd. I had a brain fart for a minute. I don't know why. I was struggling right there. But if you go to my my Instagram, you will see the podcast and you will see the mic video. So I hope y'all enjoy that. But I'm back with another video, man. Y'all see the title. I'm here to talk about Donald Trump as he calls it chaos in the United States of America, and Cam Newton and Johnny Manziel versus Gillie Da Kid. We got to talk about that. But y'all know my spiel, man. Before I get into everything, y'all see what's up here on this wall. I have my EP, Get Rich or Die Broke, that I dropped in 2024, early last year. And then I have my album, Pimpin' in the Hall of Fame, that I dropped over the summer last year. Y'all go check these projects out. They're on all streaming platforms, and I'm about to drop some new music. So like I said, if you want to stream my music, look me up everywhere where you get your music, Rich Lawd, RICHLAWD. Follow me on Instagram _RICHLAWD. And if you don't know if it's me or not, click on the song. And if you hear me screaming out my world famous ad lib, Rich, then you know where you at, man. So let's go ahead and jump into it. First off, I got to start off with the boy Trump. Now, I had to get some of the agua, the H2O. Now, y'all already know how I feel about Trump, and we know how public opinion is shifting against Trump. So let me just put this out here now. Although I do agree with a lot of Trump's policies, and I do disagree with some of them, I'll say this. Him firing the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, I disagree with that. I don't think he should have done that. Some people feel like it's because the jobs that were reported, it wasn't the jobs that we were expecting. We all got these astronomical numbers where they were saying, like, it was 100,000 jobs created this month, another 100,000 here, another 100,000 there. Excuse me. And then when they came in and did the revision, we saw that it was actually less. It was less job growth than what was expected. You see what I'm saying? So over the course of these 3 months, May, June, July, I want to say they take the data at the beginning of each month. So over May, June, and July, we saw that the Donald Trump administration created 100,000 jobs. That is less than what they originally had. Over the course of those 3 months, it's probably about 300-some thousand jobs created. Because I want to say they said from May to July, 100,000 jobs were created each month. It was like 141,000 one month, another 200-some thousand another. So it looked like the economy, that the jobs were growing, the market was growing. Hold on, let me take another sip of this water. But what we come to find out after the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, revised the data that was put out there, it shows, and this is just a rough estimate, there were about 100,000 plus jobs created over the course of 3 months in the United States, which is well below average. It was 70,000 something created in July, another like 19 something thousand created in June, and then somewhere between like 17 and 19,000 created in May. I mean, let me see. I could probably give y'all the exact numbers. Let me see. I want to tell y'all the exact numbers. Hold on. I'm back in this room again, man. I hope I don't lose service back here. Y'all know how it is. As soon as I come to this room back here, I always end up losing some service. So let me see. So let me give y'all the amount of jobs. So here it is right here. Let me see. So May, okay, so in May, it was originally indicated that there were 139,000 jobs created, but based on the revision, it was 19,000 jobs created. And then I want to say the next month, then they said in July, it was about 115,000 jobs created, but it was only 73,000 jobs created total. And I need to get the month of, let me see. That was May, June. No, that was July. I need May, I think. Let me see. May and June reduced by 258,000. What May? Okay, hold on. Let me get this for you. Hold on, y'all. Hold on. Give me a second. So okay, so in June it's loading right now. Okay, so it wasn't that. Okay, no, here it is. So in June, it was 14,000 jobs that were added. So originally they told us 147,000 jobs had been added, but then it went down to 14,000. So you get 73,000 in one month, you get 14,000 in another month, and then you get. Oh, I got all this on my phone, and then you get another 17,000. So 14. Hold on. I got all this data right here. So you have 73,000 in June, in July, and then you have another 17 in June, and then in May it's 14. No, in June it's 14. Hold on, y'all. Hold on. Let me get this, because I don't want to tell y'all the wrong thing. I gotta make sure I get this, because you gotta read through all of this data. So, okay, in May, May was 19,000. June 14,000, July 73,000. So by the time you do all that math, that's 14,000 plus 19,000 plus 73,000. I'm gonna give y'all the total number. That's 106,000 jobs created over the course of 3 months. When we originally thought it was somewhere between 300 and 400,000 jobs created within the first 3 months. So that's a significant downgrade. My bad, y'all. I took a little minute, because it's crazy, because when you try to find data, it's like you'll have it. Then when you go on live and you trying to produce it, now it's so hard to find. But anyway, those are the numbers. So the jobs have dropped tremendously versus what we originally thought. But here's the kicker. Trump fired the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And I'm saying right now, even though I support some of the stuff Trump does, I do disagree with this. I don't think he should have fired that person, because even though he feels like they're not collecting the data right, there's a way, it's a method to the madness. And I'm going to explain it to you. So when the Bureau of Labor Statistics, when they come out here and they give us these numbers of how many jobs are created each month, it's actually based on a guess. It's not based on actual data. So what they end up doing is they go and survey about 75. I mean, depending on where you get your data from, but I just say anywhere between 70 and 75% of all the businesses in the United States of America, and they go get a rough estimate on what they think how many jobs will be produced within this month. That's how they do it. They do it each month. Then they go back and they run another survey on about 90 to 95% of the business in the United States of America. So now they go to majority of the businesses, and then they go actually collect the accurate data. And then they display the data that's collected from the second survey. So the first survey is actually a guess. So when you hear, okay, well, for the month of May, June, July, the Bureau of Labor Statistics says there were 170 something thousand jobs created. They have to go back and revise it, because they run another survey to actually see if the estimates held up, and then they go make corrections. So I don't know if y'all remember. When Joe Biden was in office, right? And they were bragging on Joe Biden, kind of the same way they did with Trump. They were saying Trump created all these jobs. When Joe Biden was in office, they did the same thing. They said that, well, Joe Biden created like 1 million jobs over the course of 3-4 months. The market is hot right now. Jobs are being created. They're hiring more people more than ever. That's what we were told. But then the BLS did the same thing with Joe Biden. They ran a revision, and then they went back and calculated that they overestimated by about somewhere between 818 and 880,000 jobs. So he didn't really create those millions of jobs. And then they said a lot of the jobs were bounce back jobs. So those aren't jobs. Those aren't new jobs. Those are jobs that were already there, but they just went and hired more people. You know what I'm saying? So it'd be different if I started a company that created these shirts right here, and then I went and hired 2,500 people. That would be a brand new job, versus if I fired 2,000 or 2,500 people, then I went back and hired another 2. Those jobs are already there. That's how they defining that. So that's what you're seeing with Donald Trump. They just went back and revised what they originally put out. Now here's the part where I feel like sometimes, even with Joe Biden, I know you have to choose sides when it comes to politics, but you have to cut the president some slack because you have an administration for a reason. Because the president does not know everything. He does not know, as much as people want Donald Trump to know everything, he does not know every single thing. This is why you have an administration, so you can delegate roles to other people who have expertise in whatever position that they're in. So Donald Trump might not have known that he didn't really create all these jobs, but once the revision comes out, now it kind of does make him look bad and he want to fire the person. I don't think that he should fire the person. But I get it. This is politics. This is how they play the game. But it's reasons for that. Now, one of the reasons people say that, of course, they'll blame Donald Trump's tariffs. Even though I don't think it's Trump's tariffs that are causing this, there are a multitude of reasons. That's what people got to understand about our government and our economy. It is so many variables, so many moving factors that you can't really just place. You can't really say one thing is the reason that all of this is happening. So we know Donald Trump had been going back and forth with the chair of the Federal Reserve, or the president, Jerome Powell. I forget his position, but he is over the Federal Reserve. Let's just call him the president of the Federal Reserve. As a matter of fact, let me get his actual position, because I want to just call him the president of the Federal Reserve. Jerome Powell, his position is the chair of the Federal Reserve. Jerome Powell. So everybody knows Jerome Powell and Donald Trump has been going back and forth for the past couple months, because Donald Trump, this is the part where I keep trying to prove to y'all he's not a dictator, but here we go. Donald Trump wants the chair of Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, to lower the interest rates, but Jerome Powell isn't really sure if he should lower the interest rates or not, because he really wants to see how these tariffs impact the economy before he decides to lower the interest rates, which makes sense. But there's a downside to it. So the downside to this is, if the interest rate is, let me see what is it at currently. I want to say it's at like 4%. Hold on. I want to say the current interest rate is, okay, so it's at 5% right now. It's at depends between 5.25 and 5.50%. Depending on, where you get your information for. From my understanding, Donald Trump wants Jerome Powell to drop the interest rate down to 3%. So they've been going back and forth about that. Trump has threatened to fire Jerome Powell, even though he can't. He wants to fire Jerome Powell, even though he can't. And a lot of people are mad at Trump because he's saying like, "Oh, we're gonna fire Jerome. I'm gonna fire Jerome Powell." They just feel like it's his ego talking. Hold on, y'all. I gotta pull up some more of this data. They feel like it's his ego talking. But I understand what Jerome is saying, because he's like, well, we need to see how these tariffs are playing out. Now, a lot of people thought the tariffs were going to ruin the United States, ruin our economy, but it hasn't happened yet. So, like I said, Jerome Powell right now has an interest rate set between 5.25 and 5.50%. Trump wants them to drop it down to about 4.25, about 1%. That's all Trump is asking for, 1%. It may seem small, but that's a lot, when it comes to the economy of the United States. So like I said, 5.25 to 5.50. Trump wants Jerome Powell to drop it to 4.25 to 4.50%. Now, if you look at some of the reasons as to, why the job market isn't growing like how Trump would assume, or how the people believed it based on the data that the BLS gave. I mean, you could blame tariffs. You could blame the fact that Jerome Powell doesn't want to he doesn't want to drop the interest rates. So a lot of these businesses out here, they're not borrowing money because they feel like the interest rate is too high. Anybody understand interest rates? I'm pretty sure y'all have credit. You all have finance cars, lease cars. You understand what interest rates are. Sometimes you can get a credit card. Interest rate might be 27%. That's extremely high. Most people would tell you not to get that. But right now, we're just speaking generally. So we know that if the Federal Reserve, what we would hope, if the Federal Reserve were to drop the interest rate down to 4%, 1%, which is what Trump is asking, it would encourage these businesses to, go borrow more money from the government. That's what all this is coming down to. So since the interest rates are too high, the businesses are afraid to borrow the money because the interest rate is too high. What if they're late on the payment or anything? That's a lot of money that they have to pay back. So some of the downfalls of that is if they aren't able to borrow the money, then they're not able to hire employees. So now there's a shortage on jobs because the interest rate is high. Businesses are afraid to borrow money. Since they're not borrowing money, they're not creating new jobs, because if they create new jobs, they need the money to be able to pay the people who work the jobs. Now, what a lot of people need to understand is this. Hold on, let me take a quick drink. What people need to understand is this. And again, everybody's not, I'm not going to say dumb, but a lot of people are ignorant to how things work, including me. We don't know everything. We have to go do our research and find out what's going on. Some of us, we specialize in a certain area. Like we could talk about the economy, but you probably can't talk about global politics and vice versa. But what we have to understand is if majority of these businesses, a lot of them live check to check, just like your average American citizen does. And this was proven during COVID. Because what we saw was when COVID ended up hitting the United States, a lot of business, just think about all your favorite restaurants that you would attend. They might not have been successful chain restaurants like a TGI Fridays, but they could have just been a good local restaurant like, I'm just trying to think something like what we have, a Your Pie out here, a pizza franchise, Your Pie. I'm pretty sure y'all heard of it, maybe in y'all state or city, a corporation like that. They had to go under and had to close several businesses. I'm talking about within the first, looked like 3-4 months of COVID. So what that showed you was, damn, so this company could survive 3 or 4 months of COVID versus something like McDonald's. Like they surviving anything. It don't matter. They may have to close a few businesses here, but they've been doing business for so long and have so many restaurants across the world. That's world dominance, that they can weather the storm. But then you may have a smaller corporation, smaller business who cannot weather the storm. So within those 2, 3, 4 months of COVID, they had to shut down all their facilities, shut down operations. Why? Because just like your average human is living check to check in the United States, businesses in the United States also live check to check. That's how they're surviving, whether you believe it or not. COVID pulled a skirt up on everybody. So that's what people got to understand. So now that they're afraid, now that these businesses are afraid to borrow money, they cannot hire the people that need the jobs. Therefore, the job market isn't growing. That's just one reason, though. That's not the only reason. I want to hop up here and say and tell y'all, oh, well, the only reason that the job people aren't working is because Jerome Powell, he won't lower the interest rate. That's easy. It's easy to say that. When you play politics, when you play political football, you can say that with ease. It's Jerome Powell's fault. He didn't want to lower interest rate. The businesses were afraid to borrow money because the interest rate is too high, and they can't create jobs for the people who truly need it. It makes sense, but it's more factors. Let's move on. Then you have you have consumer confidence. That's another thing that's going on in the United States. Right now, consumer spending is low in certain areas. I'm going to say retail was one of the areas. Healthcare was in one of the areas. So if the consumers aren't spending as much, then that means a lot of these businesses, they don't have a need to pay these people. So now they have to downsize on jobs. So when you see people getting laid off, now it can be easy to say that the layoffs are in response to DEI. It may be in some cases. At this point, I don't want to negate anything, because it could be because of DEI, but it can also be because consumers aren't spending as much. You and I, we all know in the United States of America, everything is expensive. Rent is expensive, car note expensive, insurance expensive, kids expensive, groceries expensive depending on where you live, gas depending on where you live, phone bill, everything is expensive. So now when you add a child into that, child care is expensive. Now you got an extra mouth to feed, so people aren't spending as much money as they used to. So in the process of that, now these corporations, they have to downsize. They have to fire some people, lay some people off, because they're not making enough money to even pay the people. So just look at it from the business perspective. The consumer, you and I, we aren't spending as much money as we usually do. So now they have to downsize certain departments to be able to save money to keep the business running afloat. So damn, now some people get fired. That contributes to the unemployment rate. But now that we aren't spending the money, they're also afraid, not all, but they're also afraid to borrow money because interest rates are too high. So now they kind of like in a lose-lose situation. They can't hire people like that because we aren't really spending enough money, and they also can't borrow the money to even pay the employees. You get what I'm saying? So they kind of like stuck in limbo, which is why Donald Trump wanted Jerome Powell, or wants Jerome Powell to lower the interest rate. It just makes it easier for people to borrow money, including us, the American citizens. It makes it easier for us to be able to borrow and spend money without too much worries. So, like I said, the interest rate right now, 5.25 to 5.5%. Trump is asking Jerome Powell to drop it down 1% to 4.25 to 4.50%. That's all Trump asking. Just drop the interest rate by 1%. Jerome Powell said, no, I'm not doing it. We got to weather the storm. We got to see what's going on with the tariffs. So that's where we are with that. Now, again, politics, playing political football, it's going to tell you that everything Trump fault. He's fucking the United States of America up. The orange man has no idea what he's doing. He hate American citizens. He's fucking up. Cool. If that's what y'all believe, I'm not really here to debate that. I'm just here to just tell y'all this is what's going on. So is Trump causing chaos? He could be, but I do disagree. All in all, I disagree with him firing the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, because even if you put somebody else in, they're still going to collect data the same way. That's how they've always done it. Now, the next topic I want to move on to, we're talking about Trump having issues with Russia right now. So, Trump is trying to get Russia to agree to a ceasefire with Ukraine. He's given a deadline of August 9th. If Russia does not agree to a ceasefire by August 9th, he's going to place severe sanctions on Russia, and he's willing to put secondary tariffs on any country that's willing to do business with Russia. By business, I mean, purchasing oil from Russia. India is one of those countries who's saying they're going to continue buying their oil from Russia. So Trump, I'm assuming, damn, I had to burp. I'm assuming it's placing the tariffs on India in response to that. Now, some people feel like Donald Trump it has us on the brink of nuclear warfare. And I just want to say this. So I've had a lot of discussions with people about Donald Trump and what he's doing, especially when it comes to Russia, because some people felt like he was letting Russia off the hook because he was colluding with Russia. They were still running with that conspiracy that, came from the Democrats, the Obamas and Hillary Clinton, that he was colluding with Russia and he was letting them off the hook. But I always say this. When Barack Obama was in office as president, we saw this. He placed sanctions on Russia. It did not prevent them from annexing Crimea. When Joe Biden got in office, he placed sanctions on Russia. It still did not stop Russia from invading Ukraine. Remember that. So this is where I somewhat agree with Trump when it comes to the handling of Russia. So when you have these three presidents, remember now, these are the presidents of the United States of America. Regardless of if they're on the left or the right, they still represent the American government. Our American government has decided to place sanctions on Russia. But the reason they're placing sanctions on Russia is because they don't want to get into a full-scale nuclear war with Russia. That's why they haven't done that. They don't want to put boots on the ground with Russia. So think about that. The United States policy when it comes to war is to fund proxy wars. America not about to put American boots on the ground, but we will use a country like Israel to keep an eye on the Middle East. We will fund Israel and have Israel do all our destruction and devastation. We will fund a country like Ukraine, even though we have to because of NATO. But I'm saying we will fund Ukraine to help fight against Russia, but we won't put boots on the ground because we don't want it to escalate into nuclear warfare, which makes sense. So if Obama places sanctions on Russia and it still hadn't stopped them from annexing Crimea, Joe Biden get in office, placed sanctions on Russia after the Afghanistan troop withdrawal. They decided to invade Ukraine because they felt like America was weak. They felt like if Joe Biden couldn't handle the Afghanistan troop withdrawal, what makes us feel that he could stop us from invading Ukraine? So they decide to invade Ukraine. Joe Biden responds by placing severe sanctions on Russia. Their goal was to starve Russia out, basically. Make their dollar, I don't know what the Russian money is. Is it a ruble or whatever? But to weaken their dollar, to weaken their economy. Now, we all know, like, Russia's having a population issue with their country. Their economy is shrinking because of the sanctions, but it hasn't stopped them. That's the part about it, I guess, where I feel like they're not really working, because although all this stuff is happening, the dollar getting weak, economy is shrinking. For whatever reason, they still full scale invasion. They don't give a fuck about none of that. They going in, fucking our dollar shrinking. We finna drop some bombs on Ukraine. Our economy shrinking. We about to drone strike Ukraine. They don't give a fuck. They'll say they'll agree to a ceasefire, then the next minute they won't. So the former president of Russia, and I want to say he's like a leader of the military. I forget his last name. I just know his first name is Dmitry. He said that he's considering Trump's deadline of August 9th to agree to a ceasefire as a threat. So Donald Trump responded accordingly. So since Dmitry said that it was a threat, Donald Trump said, okay, well, cool. Since you think it's a threat, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put these nuclear submarines, we're going to place them right outside your country. Now, where they are exactly on the map, I don't know, because I haven't researched it like that. But what I'm saying is, now they're playing a back and forth game. So it's kind of like when America found out that Russia had missiles in Cuba, which is literally on the United States doorstep. They acted a fool. They were ready to take it there. They were ready to blow them to smithereens. They were ready to do whatever it took, and they resolved it through diplomacy. So now we have to see what happens between Russia and the United States, because this is a real issue. You know what I'm saying? This is a real issue. And I ask people all the time, especially for those who, who dislike Trump about everything. And I say, well, how would you handle the situation with Russia? You say you will apply the sanctions, but when you apply sanctions, what is your goal? I will assume your goal will be to weaken their economy, but that is not scaring them. So if we're not going to put boots on the ground, if we're not going to bomb them, and the sanctions aren't working to stop them from invading Ukraine, what do we do? And Volodymyr Zelensky has come out and said that China is helping Russia, China's helping Russia fight Ukraine, which is still amazing because Ukraine is such a small country and they're still able to defend themselves against mighty Russia with the help of American muscle, of course. But it's just the fact that they still can defend it. Now, what they don't want to happen is America now has to put boots on the ground. I feel like right now America is not our people, not the American government. They don't really want to see our soldiers sit to Europe to go and fight that, honestly. So now Trump kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. What do you do? Now, they have solutions, but I don't think any sanction you place on Russia right now is going to stop anything, especially because they got the help from China. So I'm kind of like 50-50 on this. We don't know really what's going to happen. We really don't know. But that was another thing that was going on then. I don't know if y'all seen this or not, but this is another issue I'm having with Trump right now. So he's decided to, was it FEMA? I'm trying to get this right. Let me see. I know how to explain it. I just don't know if it was FEMA, excuse me. I think it was with FEMA. So Trump has decided to, okay, that's what it was. It was FEMA. So this is why I disagree with Trump. He kind of doing the same thing LBJ did, not LeBron James, but Lenny Baines Johnson. He's deciding to allocate funds for FEMA over to Israel to help Israel fight with Hamas. And they're willing to withhold any money to any city or state that is willing to boycott what's going on. So that is something where I disagree with Trump on. Because number one, I understand that Israel is an ally of the United States of America. But I don't feel like we should be blindly in support of Israel. So, and that's kind of the fucked up part about it. Because if you were to do a survey on the American citizens, majority of them are probably going to say they're anti-Israel. They think we need to help Gaza and we need to stop supporting Israel. You're going to see that all the time. I guarantee you see more people who doesn't want America to help than the other way around. So now you mean to tell me that you're going to use the funds for FEMA to help Israel? That doesn't make sense. Hold on, let me get all my facts together. That doesn't make sense. Like you literally you're and you know the propaganda is so crazy in the United States, but like you're literally going to use federal funding to help a country with a genocide. To me, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense at all. Hold on. And it's kind of similar to what Lyndon Baines Johnson did during the Vietnam War. You know what I'm saying? So let me see. I'm gonna get back to what I was saying about the Vietnam War. So the Trump administration to withhold disaster funding for cities that boycott Israel. The condition applies to at least 1.9 billion dollars that states rely on to cover search and rescue equipment, emergency manager salaries, and backup power systems, among other expenses. The Trump administration says states and cities will not receive funding to prepare for natural disasters if they choose to boycott Israeli companies, according to an agency statement. States must certify that they will not cut off commercial relations specifically with Israeli companies to receive the money from the Federal Emergency Management Association, which is FEMA, according to the agency terms for grants. The condition applies to at least $1.9 billion that states rely on to cover search and rescue equipment, emergency manager salaries, and backup power systems, among other expenses, according to 11 agency grant notices that reviewed by Reuters. It is the latest example of Trump administration making use of routine federal funding to advance its political message at state level. So sometimes I agree, because presidents do this. They all do it, even in other countries. Obama did it when he was, talking to the president of Kenya and Uganda about them treating that LGBT community better than what they're treating them. They need better civil rights. And in Africa, they felt like the LGBTQ were Western ideals, and they didn't have that problem in the in that country, in their respective country. So to punish them, Barack Obama allocated funds elsewhere or reduced the amount that they would send to those nations to kind of get them to bend the knee to what he was pushing for. So it's the same thing that Trump is doing. I just disagree with it. I don't think that cities and states should be punished for not supporting Israel, because most people you speak to do not support Israel. I don't give a fuck. That's the cold part. It's some people that are staunch MAGA. They fuck with Donald Trump, but they still like, hell no, not that shit with Israel. Hell no. Why we have to do Israel's bidding? Because it doesn't even sound like when you hear the reasoning for it, it doesn't even sound like that's our president talking. That more sounds like that's the Israeli officials forcing our American government to tell us that, well, if you boycott any Israeli establishment, you will not get this federal funding for natural disasters, which to me does not make sense. Most people don't care about Israel. They're committing genocide in their country. And we all know this. No matter how much you try to clean it up, no matter how much you try to quote the Bible, no matter how much you try to bring up some stuff thousands of years ago and said that, the country of Israel originally belonged to, the people they call the Jews. No matter how much you say that, what we're witnessing, and you can see this as clear as day. You can see this as clear as day on social media. What we're witnessing is, in fact, a genocide. And yes, our American government is complicit with it. They're doing everything in their power to fund that, and they have done that for years. This isn't just Donald Trump. Right now, Trump is the person in office, so of course you blame him. But then what took place before Trump took office? The same thing. All our presidents since Woodrow Wilson has accepted the fact that Israel is an actual country. Back in 1946 and 1948, when Israel was truly established as an independent nation, the United States was the first country in the world to recognize them 10 minutes into their creation. So that just goes to show you what our American government wants. And we use them as a strategic piece to keep our eye on the Middle East and allow them to do our dirty work in the Middle East so we don't have to. It's just the American people, just like it was with Vietnam, how the people were tired of the Vietnam War and they felt like it wasn't going anywhere. We weren't really winning, and troops were just dying for no reason. It's the same thing with Israel. We're giving up money for them. It seems like Israel has more control over our United States than we do, or than our president does. And the reason I brought up LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, is because at one point, after the public opinion shifted against the Vietnam War, they saw all the atrocities and they just felt like we weren't winning that war. the public opinion turned down. They already wasn't in favor of it, but then it just kept going down, kept going down. And LBJ told the people, hey, the war's almost over. We're not gonna try to extend it, push it forward. We're gonna go ahead and try to bring it to an end. And while he made these great society, the great society policies to, supposedly help the poor black community to keep the war going, he kind of did what Trump did. He went and pulled money out of the Great Society, which was meant for the black people, to go help, buy weapons and keep funding this war and keep pushing this war till we can totally defeat communism. And then he lied to the people. And then that's when Martin Luther King Jr. called him out and was like, well, hold on now. You said that this money was for the Negro. How does this money that was allocated for the Negro go to Vietnam? And you just told us that you were trying to end that conflict. You didn't want to keep pursuing it. So that's pretty much what we're saying when it comes with Israel. For whatever reason, some of it conspiracy, some of it's truth. Our American government is going to back our ally of Israel, regardless who is the president. When Joe Biden was president of the United States and the ICC had a chance to, fulfill a warrant to get and prosecute Benjamin Netanyahu for war crimes, Joe Biden banned them from the United States of America and said that they had no jurisdiction in the United States of America and that we were going to give Israel our full support no matter what. So, that's that. Now, enough of the politics. Let's move on to some sports talk. For everybody who's in this live that's going to watch this live after I post it, make sure you subscribe to my page. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you comment on the video if you like what I'm talking about, or if you disagree, put everything in the comments. We're done with the political side of the live. Let's move on to the sports side of the live. Now we're talking about Johnny Manziel, Cam Newton versus Gillie Da Kid. And this is where it gets crazy. So, I don't know if y'all have known or not. Cam Newton has his own podcast. He's been going back and forth with Gillie Da Kid about, his time as a NFL MVP quarterback in the league. And, Cam Newton feels some type of way because he feels like people just kind of like dogpiling on his name. And, Jalen Hurts won a Super Bowl. And since Cam Newton then put Jalen Hurts on his top 10 list, a lot of people have been attacking Cam Newton. So now he responds. So, Gillie was going off on Cam Newton saying he hadn't won an award, this and that. And then Cam Newton came back and was like, well, Gillie, let's look up what you did. So none of your albums charted. You weren't really selling like that. You were a mediocre, average rapper at best. This is what Cam Newton's feeling. These aren't my personal feelings. You're an average, mediocre artist at best. And if you did write the rhymes for Lil Wayne's career was way better than yours. So he's basically saying like, even though you didn't play football and I didn't rap, if we have to speak about what we did in our respective career, I was more successful in my career than you were in your career. I may have not won a Super Bowl, but I went to a Super Bowl. I set records in the NFL. I won MVP. I think he also won Rookie of the Year. So it shows you that Cam wasn't no scrub. And then he's saying, well, you haven't won anything. You didn't get a BET Award, Lifetime Achievement Award, MTV Award, Source Award. You didn't get any type of award or any type of recognition. The only thing we know you for is because you supposedly wrote rhymes for Lil Wayne. And the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast, most people really like the podcast because of Wallow and not you. That's pretty much where the argument is going with that. Now they taking personal shots. But I want everybody to know, even though it's roll tide to the day I'll die, I can't negate that Cam Newton was a stud regardless of how his career turned out. Cam Newton was a good quarterback. I don't like players that come from Auburn, but I can't just hate on somebody just because of the school they went to. Like, he was a extremely good athlete. Did he not dive on the football during Super Bowl 50 when my Denver Broncos beat him? Yeah, but that's debatable. Like I said, his tackle let Von Miller get to him. If his receivers would have gotten open, he could have thrown the ball, either thrown an incompletion or at least given the receiver an accurate ball. Or if he had time in the pocket, he wouldn't have to worry about being stripped. But we had Hall of Famer Von Miller pressuring that I want to say it was the left tackle, right tackle, one of those tackles at the time. He got the strip, and then here we are. But like, if we want to play that argument of who was better in their respective field, you got to take Cam over Gillie. Like, just honest to God, when I was growing up, all thing I knew about Gillie was nothing until they kept saying, man, it's this dude. He said that he write Lil Wayne rhymes. I was a kid, like, between the ages of 10 and 15 when Wayne was coming up. So, like, that's back when Wayne was the shit. So then when you start hearing somebody like you never heard of, some dude from Philly saying he wrote all Lil Wayne lines, and they, this when YouTube was first being established, they posted the videos of the rhymes. They kind of sound similar, same type of flow, same type of rhyme pattern, but it's people still chose Wayne over Gillie. And then, like Cam saying, a lot of people watch $1 million worth of game because they really fuck with Wallow, because Wallow is the one who went to prison for 20 plus years, came out, did his time, giving game to the youth, and they just feel like, some people feel like Gillie Da Kid is just there as a mascot. And speaking of mascot, that's how people are looking at Gillie Da Kid when it comes to his fandom for Philly. Now, Johnny Manziel ended up jumping into it because he feels like what Gillie Da Kid is doing with Cam Newton is really corny, and he told Gillie, not face to face, but just, I want to say speaking like on X, or I'll slap Gillie or something if I see him, some of that nature. But it's like, I feel all sides of it, to be honest. But I look at it like this: the way Gillie is acting, you would want him to act, or I wouldn't even say you, me. I would expect Gillie to act like that around somebody like me, two fans talking about football. So if I was a Cam Newton Panthers fan and he was a Philadelphia Eagles fan, the way he is speaking, I would want him to talk to a fan who did not play football. Someone who could, because he's like, man, get off Jalen Hurts' dick. You ain't never won this right here. You ain't never got this before. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, he actually played football. So for like a fan to be talking to him like that, it's not the same. It's like a fan talking to Gillie about hip hop. It's not looked at the same. If somebody said Lil Wayne was better than you, you was this and this, you would probably consider them a Lil Wayne dick rider. And you probably like, well, you don't understand the game, the rap game, and the politics behind it, the business behind it, which would make sense. That's why I kind of agree that it is corny. It's funny at the same time, but it is kind of corny because it's like this dude played in the league for real, bro. Most people are not trying to hear a fan talk like that unless they're talking to other fans, because you're fanned out. You would never give him his credit for anything. You're a fan of the opposing team that won the Super Bowl. So when you have the athletes that come in and can defend Cam and defend Jalen Hurts, I would rather see Ryan Clark and Cam Newton go at it versus Gillie Da Kid and Cam Newton, because most of the stuff that Gillie Da Kid is going to say and do is going to be from a trolling standpoint because he is a fan. Not saying that Gillie don't have respect for the game of football. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying he's a fan. I'm a fan of Alabama. I would like shit talking. Even I would be like, well, I couldn't do that because I want to say Cam Newton them beat Bama the year he was their quarterback. But if a person went to Auburn, I'd be like, man, y'all boy can't see Bama. I would say that like in a joking way, but I wouldn't go all the way like that because the respect is not. Athletes don't respect fans like that because you're not the one playing. Like, you're a fan. They looking at you like, bro, just stay in the fucking stands and cheer and get your pom-poms and be happy when your team win and be sad when they lose. That's all we need you there for. We don't need the extra critique and criticism because you're not an athlete. And I feel that. That's why I say I can't even be mad at Cam Newton for responding how he responded. Johnny Manziel said he was going to slap Gillie. Is he really going to slap Gillie? Who knows? I don't think so. I think people just mad and you just, you get to talking like that. But, I mean, I feel it, bro. I feel it. It's cool for entertainment. I don't think it's really that serious. I don't think it's really that serious and none that people really need to dig into. I don't think. I mean, you never know. They could meet up and get to fighting, but I feel like they should keep it like how it is. Let Gillie talk his shit from whatever podcast he's on. Let Cam Newton defend himself on whatever podcast he's on. Johnny Manziel has now entered the chat. Could it be because he thinks this shit is corny or he's trying to get some clout? Who knows? But now he's into this discussion too. So I'm pretty sure Johnny Manziel got his little podcast going on. He's gonna say whatever. So I mean, I feel all sides. It's all in the name of fun. As long as ain't nobody dying and Cam Newton can respond to Gillie, I have no issue. So that's my take on it. So that's my live for today, man. Y'all let me know if y'all enjoy everything. Y'all already know what to do. If you're not in this live and you end up watching this live a little later, man, go ahead and like the live. Make sure you comment on it if you agree. If you disagree, share it with your people. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Subscribe, man. I'm trying to get to 3,000 subscribers. I'm at like 2,700, man. So I need y'all to really go and do that. And y'all know, last but not least, man, go stream my music. I got my EP right here, Get Rich or Die Broke. And I have my album that I put out both last year, Pimpin' in the Hall of Fame. Is out on all platforms. I will go live later on throughout the week. So I'll holler at y'all.